Are you in the studio alone this Christmas? So am I. It's the Emergency in the Studio Alone episode. This is a show about jewelry, why we wear it, why it matters, how it's made, and what it means. I'm Alex D, and I turn cannabis into gold. I make mind-blowing jewelry in gold, silver, and platinum from cannabis plants here in Canada for stage, screen, for people who want to rock crazy jewelry. I'm the Cannabis Goldsmith. Another Christmas by myself. I'm used to them now, but years ago I wasn't, and they were much harder to deal with. I used to worry about them. Like, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago, I'd be terrified when Christmas came around because I don't even know why. It's just something I just sort of fell into. Just the assumption that Christmas is a really hard time of year to deal with. But really, it's not. It's just another day. So I'm in the studio today. I've got some ideas I'm working on. A couple of days ago, I got up in the morning and I had this flash, this idea of a man brooch to make, a brooch for a lapel and a tux or a suit. And I got it while I was rolling a joint, actually. I was rolling a joint just with a paper, not one of those really long cigarette papers or joint papers, but just a normal size one, a regular size one. I guess the same length as a zigzag paper, something like that. You know, a regular kind of cigarette paper. So I was rolling a joint, and I'm okay at doing that. I mean, I hadn't for decades, and then I started rolling joints, I guess, last year every so often, and I surprised myself by remembering how to do it. It's like riding a bike, I guess. You know, something you never forget. If you give it up for 30 years and then you get back on, you might be a bit wobbly at first, but in the end, you'll be riding in seconds, pretty much. So it was with my joint rolling. So I was rolling this joint, and it wasn't going exactly right, and I was thinking about that, and all of a sudden I got this vision of a man brooch, a joint being rolled, like not rolled already. I've seen pins of joints, right? People have a joint pin. In the shape, mostly this is mass-produced garbage coming from China, these little badges or whatever. But no, I'm thinking about something different. I was thinking, what if I replicate the paper in silver, like thin sheet of silver, and the gum, you know, these papers have like a strip of gum across the top, so I could create that with a high polish. So I'd polish the silver really high in one area to give it that gum look, and the rest of it, you know, make it a matte finish. So the two finishes, you'd be able to see them. And even with silver tarnishing, I think this would look great because they would tarnish in different ways. So they would always have this kind of, there would always be the gum strip on the top somehow. I think you'd be able to see it, even if the piece was left to tarnish in a box somewhere. It would look pretty good, I think. So I started visualizing, like, what if the paper was a 1 millimeter sheet of silver, and if I fold it like that in the middle, put a strip of gum, what can I use for the weed on the inside, like to symbolize that? And I thought, well, we have great Canadian jade. We have some nice BC jade that has that green color, has various types of green color. I've got some that's light in color and some that's darker, but none of it is suitable for this. I've got the pieces I have are quite large, so I need little small pieces that to sort of give you the idea of cannabis in being rolled in this paper. So I was thinking, how am I going to do that? What am I going to do? And then it came to me. It's like, okay, I'll use BC Jade. I'll use little pieces. So I ordered some pieces, and they're on the way now. And when they get here, I'll drill them and mount them inside this sterling silver cigarette paper, joint paper. And now this is going to be open. It's not like rolled up. It'll be in the process of being rolled. And in the so at the back, I hope you're visualizing all this. If you're an artist, you can probably see what I'm talking about. But a cigarette paper made of silver, 1 millimeter thick silver, or even a little bit less if I can do it, to give it that thinness, the cigarette paper look. And then on the inside, sprinkled on the bottom, pieces of jade, BC Jade, to represent the cannabis being rolled up. Now, this is the brooch idea. I had a man brooch. And then at the back would be a pin back, so what we call a pin back. So a pin where you can put a pin through your lapel, and then a little locking thing that rotates, so it wouldn't fall off accidentally. Hopefully, sometimes they do, but I mean, a good pin back is the way to go. So I would make a pin back for the back of this, and it's just how it would hang on the lapel, because this is a lot of weight. Hey, we've got little bits of jade, green jade, and although they're not heavy, they have to be mounted at the bottom of this sterling silver rolling paper. Now, how I'm going to do that? So that's what I'm in the studio doing today. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I think I've got a good idea of how to do that. Now, I know some of you are working on paintings or pottery in your studios today and doing the same thing as I'm doing, basically, but with your own specific art that you do. So this podcast is for you. I mean, you can listen to me if you need to get through Christmas. This will be a half hour of me talking about the pieces I'm working on here now in the studio on Christmas Day. And it can be background for you. It'll make a half hour of the day go quicker, I think. So we're working on this cigarette paper idea. I think I can make it. I have a bit of sheet silver. I could probably hammer into the fold, into the shape of this cigarette paper in sterling. It's just a question of attaching the jade pieces on the bottom. It's not too heavy, so this thing would work as a brooch. Because if it doesn't, then I might have to do something different with it, like make it into a pendant or something, so it could hang off a chain. But I think this would be better as a man brooch. So I got to work on keeping the weight down. This is going to be a lot of metal. I mean, this is a lot. A cigarette paper is, let me measure one here now. Let's grab this ruler. So we're looking at maybe in inches, like 3 inches wide by 1 inch and 3/4 tall. And then it's folded in half. So the folded in half size is like 7/8. 7/8. So there's a crease in this sheet. You can hear me with the cigarette paper here. I'm like kind of looking at it. All right. So when you're rolling a joint, I mean, the paper isn't perfectly flat either. There's stuff going on. There's stuff going on in the paper. There's like little curves around. Like sometimes there's bends. When you're trying to roll, it won't roll properly sometimes because of the corners get kind of trapped in the wrong way. But I don't want any of that. I just want an open cigarette paper in kind of a curve. This is going to be quite large, actually. The thing is with making jewelry, like this, like these custom pieces, it's not enough to draw them. I have to make them in some kind of material, just to see how they look before I even go to meddle with them, because sometimes it just won't work. With jewelry, with fine jewelry, with any good jewelry, you want to hook in any stones you use. You don't want to adhere. You don't want to use adhesive. You want to hook the stones in mechanically. This is why diamonds are set with claws or prongs or bezels, or metal is kind of pressed around the top to hold them into settings. They're not glued in. They're held there mechanically. It's a much more reliable thing, because glues are just not that reliable. They fail over time. The chemistry changes and they fail, or they crack, right? Like if you're wearing a piece and it's exposed to room temperature, and suddenly you go outside here in Canada and it's -10, the glue might just crack, right, from the metal shrinking. And this is why gems are set mechanically with prongs, or even when you're beading. I mean, you drill a hole and you thread some kind of bead string through it, but the bead string's gonna break. But if you can use metal instead, right, which will be last longer. So that's what I'm thinking of doing with this joint, this Roland man brooch, which is going to be a joint made of sterling silver in the process of being rolled, with jade chips pieces at the bottom representing the cannabis. It's not going to be any cannabis here. It's just going to be gems and silver. I have an 18-karat gold cannabis seed. I might put a seed in there too. That might be an interesting kind of effect. It would be kind of satire too, because those of us who've done rolling before know what a seed is in a joint when you're trying to roll it. It's not always the best thing to find. Usually, it isn't the best thing to find, but it is something you do find sometimes. No matter how good your cannabis is, that might be a stray seed that the plant has produced that winds up. Maybe I'll do that. I'll put an 18-karat gold cannabis seed in amongst the jade pieces. We'll see how it looks. But how am I going to attach these jade pieces to the flat cigarette paper in sterling silver? Well, I'm going to drill them, I think, and like beading, like I was talking about earlier, except I'm going to use sterling silver wire, maybe 1 millimeter wire, and thread them onto this paper at the bottom. So that might be a way to do it, to minimize weight and to give us a nice strong inside, so they don't all fall out or whatever. Now, how to do that, I've yet to figure out. I have to wait till the jade arrives before I can decide where I'm going to go with it. The pieces might be too big to use. I might have to smash them and repolish them or something. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But it's going to be an interesting piece, and one-of-a-kind piece, I think. And it might work, and it might not work. But I'm in the studio today trying to figure it out. And the other thing is I'm like another piece, just random pieces today. I'm not necessarily following our brand's style or direction, even though our brand has a particular style and direction. Sometimes these art pieces, like that, I just have to make them. I mean, you're an artist too. You're in your studio today when everyone else is spending time with their families. Or maybe that's why you're in the studio today. You just had to get the fuck away and get into the studio and make your pottery or whatever, because Christmas is just like, you've just had enough of it. Or maybe you just need the break sometimes from the family to come back and deal with it. I know when my parents were alive, I used to go visit them for Christmas, and they lived in South Africa. And so I would fly from Canada with Christmas to spend time with them Christmas. And I remember I would always bring stuff from Canada for them, stuff they couldn't get, stuff that they liked, but it was totally unavailable there. I remember once I flew down with an entire wheel of Oka cheese, not the little tiny ones you can get that are like you fit in your hand. No, these are like 18 inches across and like 6 inches thick. And this cheese smells too, right? So here you're not allowed to bring dairy products into South Africa because, or any country really, I don't think, because, the customs doesn't want, first of all, they don't want foreign cheese in their countries. They want their local cheese makers to be rocking the cheese. But Oka cheese is not available in South Africa, and it's truly a Canadian made cheese. It's made I guess originally made by monks, Cistercian monks or something in Canada, and but anyway, now it's made by some huge corporation. But it has a particular taste. But the one thing it's known for, as it ages, it develops this smell, like smelly cheeses, like feet, that kind of smell. But each day after harvest, if they harvest these Oka cheeses, I don't know what they have, when they come out of the Oka cheese studio. God, I can only imagine what that smells like. Anyway, when they come out, the moment you take them out and you put even in the fridge, they begin smelling. So I was on a very narrow time window with this huge wheel of Oka cheese and 14 hours of flying time to get it past the customs in South Africa in under the tree, under my parents' tree, or in the fridge. And I realized that once you get the cheese there, you got to eat it fast because you can't freeze it because it changes the texture of the cheese, and you can't have that, man. This is Oka cheese. If you ever try it, come to Canada and try it. Buy a little. If you're a tourist, it's available at any supermarket here. Look for it and go for the. Don't go for the newfangled versions. They have light and they have all these other. No, go for the original version, and then you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you keep it in your fridge longer than a week, it's gonna, believe me, everything in your fridge is gonna smell like that cheese. So I'd be smuggling the one time I smuggled a whole wheel of Oka cheese down to my parents for Christmas. And they truly loved it for the first few days. But after that, even in like triple Ziploc bags, it still smelled like Oka cheese. But anyway, where was I? What was I talking about? Oh, Christmas with families. Like if you're wanting to get away and get into the studio and make something, just to deal with the stress of it all. I don't blame you. I really don't blame you. And I don't have to deal with that anymore. But there's a certain amount of loneliness that happens to solitary artists and artisans who work by themselves most of the time. I've learned how to cope with it, but it's there. I can feel it from time to time. But I'm in trying to get this joint idea, this roller, this man broach figured out. I think it's an interesting idea. No one else would make this except me, anyway. And who knows? Maybe I'll find somebody, some star, to wear it on their lapel at a major event next year. I think the different metals, the jade, the gold, the silver, I think it's going to look really good. The pin back is the other thing. All this shit weighs a lot. Jewelers, we got to think about this. Not only when we set stones, so we have to set them in ways that are mechanically set, not glued in. They have to be set. We do use glues for some things, but rarely, right? There's special epoxies that jewelers use, but this is not the case for this. This is going to be open and visible. Yeah, I can see it in my mind now, but we'll see. How I do this is I'm gonna make the cigarette paper now in wax, in 1 millimeter thick sheet wax, And I'm going to weigh that on a scale. And that'll tell me how much the paper is going to weigh in silver. There's a ratio that we use. I can multiply by that, determine how much the silver, sterling silver cigarette paper is going to weigh. That alone might be too heavy for this piece. So each step along the way, I'm weighing objects and I've got like a total that I keeping an eye on. It might be too heavy, right? So what I'm going to do is I have, if you go back, a few dozen episodes, I did a show when I found a mannequin in Ottawa, a full-size mannequin. So this is where the mannequin comes into play. I'm going to dress the mannequin up in a suit or a tux. I am going to get an object that's in a similar shape to what this man brooch is going to look like, this roller man brooch, and clip it on the tux on the mannequin and see how it hangs on the lapel. Does it pull the whole thing over? Does it fold the lapel? I want it to work, right? I don't want to make this amazing object that can't be actually worn anywhere because it'll folds the lapel right over or something like that. I mean, you got to think about all this shit before you spend the time making the piece. So that's why the mannequin is going to come into play in this area. Or if I can convert it to a pendant, I can like hang it off the mannequin and see how it hangs on the pendant. I mean, it would have to be balanced in that regard too. So all these things I'm thinking about on Christmas Day in the studio here with this roller piece. I'm also working on another piece that is totally not, again, not within our brand so much, actually not at all. But I mean, it's relentless about Taylor Swift in every fucking media there is. I'm a Swiftie, so but you reach this threshold, like of it's just an enormous industry thing. I mean, it's just grown into some weird kind of mega thing, So I was thinking I'm going to do a piece inspired by that, and the idea that people go see the Taylor, the Eras tour or whatever with wearing their friendship bracelets. So that's where the idea came from. It's like, okay, I'm going to make an enemy necklace, not a friendship bracelet, or an enemy bracelet, and I've got. You know how they use these little letters on beads around a string? I'm going to do the same thing, but in precious metal. And I'm going to make the beads bigger. And the messages are not going to be so, so friends, BFF forever kind of stuff. It's going to be a harder message, shall we say. So I'm working on these beads, these letter beads that, now you might think that's easy. And it could be easy if they were solid. Yeah, that would be easy for me to do, to slice up some silver bar, some round bar into little discs, and then drill them out and make a necklace out of it. No, but I want to make them bigger. So here's where the weight comes into play. If they're bigger, they have to be hollowed out. So I'm making the master letter bead out of silver, but first I'm making it out of resin, a kind of a plastic resin. And what I want it to look like is I want it to look like the regular bead, the regular friendship bracelet bead with, say, letters on them, but bigger, like 3 times bigger. And in order to do this, I have to take away the back and the inside to lighten the weight. So I want it to weigh the same as a solid one would weigh, so a smaller one that you would get like at a dollar store or whatever in plastic. But I want it 3 times as big, but I want it to weigh, I want it lighter, because when you start building words with these letters, the weight adds up again. And in metal, when you always, as a jeweler, you're always thinking about metal. It's not just what the cost of the metal is. With silver, it's not so much. All the work involved is the same, whether it's silver or gold. That's where the cost is in the labor and the design and that kind of stuff. But silver is heavy, gold's heavy. It's heavy, and we're always battling. More is not necessarily better, right, for these things. And when I'm looking at words being built out of these tiny little, it's not going to be so tiny. Each one of these is maybe half an inch in diameter, like, you know, a centimeter across or something like that. Like, they're quite big. And when you start building words with them, they start adding up in weight, like to boat anchor fucking weight. And you don't want that. You want it lighter, so it'll hang nicely around a neck, or sit on a wrist nicely, but not be burdensome, right? Because these are, I think, predominantly, these are not like heavyweight pieces. They're not meant to look heavyweight. They're meant to look delicate and fun and friendly. But the message is the opposite on the actual letters. So I'm working on that today. That's what I'm working on. Oh, I'm about to launch next year. I'm doing something next year that's kind of, it's a loose end that I want to tie up. And it's more than a loose end. It's my life's work I want to get sorted out. Before I became a jeweler, I was a photographer and a magazine publisher. So I have all that content and stuff. I want to prepare it and start preparing that. So I'm thinking about that today in the studio, and I think I'm going to cut a video hopefully before the end of the year in the studio, and maybe run a Patreon to raise money to scan all the slides and negatives from that period. So I'm going to write like a storyboard, a small video of me. I don't like recording myself very much in video, but we'll do it for this, and who knows, maybe I can raise enough money to make this scanning digitization thing happen. But anyway, today that's not the most important thing on Christmas Day. Today, I'm going to be working on the cigarette paper thing. By the end of the day, at least I'll know how much the metal is going to weigh used in the piece. So I can calculate roughly what the whole piece is going to weigh on a lapel. And maybe I can build something here out of stainless or aluminum sheet or something of the same weight, and stick it on a lapel and see what it does. You know, that's the goal today, Christmas Day. Doing work with my hands, getting stuff accomplished. Also, I'm working on a coin design too. Kind of it's not a coin for currency, but it's a coin design that can be used for a medallion. And it's almost done. I managed to capture all the leaf structures, the cannabis leaf structures, over the growing season, and I got quite a few of those. So I'm going to experiment with some models to see if I can make a really nice coin pendant to hang off a big chain. You know, like the old kind of a Mr. T kind of size, a big, huge thing, maybe 3 inches across, maybe 2 inches across, something like that. 2 millimeters thick, maybe heavy, nice, with a nice cannabis leaf, or a leaf grouping in the center. That's what I'm thinking about today. So anyway, I'm going to pour myself a cup of coffee, go back in and get a coffee, and then come back out here and start fiddling with this roller man brooch. I think next year might be the year for man brooches for some reason. I mean, we're due, aren't we? That's it for me. Hey, have a happy Christmas, everyone. And if you're listening to this, you're by yourself. You've just, a half an hour of it has just gone by and you weren't even aware of it. Or if you're mired in some kind of art project like I am today, have fun, enjoy it. And I'll see you on Wednesday on the Cannabis Goldsmith. The Cannabis Goldsmith is produced by Tribe Communications, Inc. in the Thousand Islands area of Ontario, Canada. You can see what we do at tribe.ca. Send us an email, alexd@cannabisgoldsmith.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Cannabis Goldsmith.